Part 38. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 371. The Sea Boundary of Totland and All Nations, Butter Island. Today is the day when the Big Mom Pirate Group's tea party begins. However, on this supposedly very festive day, Butter Island and even the surrounding waters were not particularly happy. On the contrary, the huge number of Homies Corps and various pirate ships under the Big Mom Pirate Group are almost all around Butter Island. There are 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside, which wrap up the island. He was waiting sternly, as if he was waiting for some enemy to arrive. Even in the waters not too far away from Butter Island, there are still several warships lingering here. They do not approach or leave. There is no doubt that this is the Navy's surveillance ship. And among these warships, there is also a ship from the G-5 naval base, and the commander on it is none other than the famous Momoto Jun. Jun really wants to go in and cause trouble. Fight these damn pirates. But she also knew that she couldn't go. Once she went, she might not be able to come back. Because the Navy headquarters did not have any support this time, the order given was to observe the situation. Although Jun is strong, if he breaks into Butter Island by force, he will probably be defeated by the masters of the Big Mom Pirates. What's more, after this, it may develop into a battle between the 4 strongest pirate groups in the New World. How could she go? The tea party was still held in the open air, with many dining tables placed in the square of Butter Island Castle. There were already many desserts and cakes on the table. Of course, tea is also indispensable. After all, it was called a tea party, so Charlotte Lingling didn't prepare anything else, just snacks and tea. Then we all sit down and chat together to enhance our relationship, and that's pretty much it. Charlotte Lingling has not come yet. But many of the big guys in the New World have already arrived. Among the Big Mom Pirates, those responsible for entertaining here are the eldest son Perospero and the perfect man Katakuri, as well as some of the other main cotters of the Big Mom Pirates. Several big guys in the Dark World were also sitting at the same table at this time. The reason why they are willing to participate in the tea party is actually because they are afraid of being killed. On the other hand, this tea party is indeed a place where industry leaders gather to communicate with colleagues from the Dark World. Deep-sea current Umit is engaged in the world's largest smuggling shipping business and has a close cooperative relationship with Avalon. This guy, in the Dark World, enjoys the title of Sea Transport King. It is said that as long as you give your goods to him, and as long as money is no problem, he can send your goods to anywhere in the world you want to send. Even Holy Land Marijoa. Of course, this is still a bit exaggerated. For example, if you want him to send his pirate flag to Ralph Drew and insert it there to mark the territory or something. Do you think he can do it? But it has to be said that Wilmot is still very powerful. Even in terms of the number of ships under his command, he is no less than the Big Mom Pirates or even any other powerful pirate group. On the contrary, it is only more. There are also countless people working for him. Wilmot's appearance is a bit naive, not very handsome, not very domineering. However, since he has been in a high position all year round, he naturally has some unknown aura about him. At a glance, people can feel that he must be a powerful guy. Holding a donut in his hand and taking a bite, Wilmot looked at the people sitting at the table and sneered, "This year's tea party is a lot more deserted, even Stussy isn't here. Wilmot is one of the emperors of the Dark World. Those who can sit at the same table with him are naturally big guys from all walks of life. For example, Big News Morgans, the newspaper president of News of the World. Another example is the Lone Shark King Dufeld and his ilk. Morgans didn't pay attention to Umit. Instead, he looked expectant. While eating the sweet corn kernels specially prepared for him, he looked left and right and kept looking around the tea party venue. Dufeld took a sip of tea, glanced at Umit and said, "Don't you know why Stussy didn't come?" Do you really think this tea party is an invitation for us to reminisce about old times? To be honest, I really want to leave now, so as not to get involved in trouble and die without knowing how. In the past, Stussy would almost always receive an invitation to tea parties, and she would come every time. On the surface, the relationship between Stussy and Charlotte Lingling is still very good. Because both of them had been orphans in the church and were adopted by nuns during their childhood. At that time, there was some childhood friendship. Looking a little deeper, Stussy is a top agent of the world government. Charlotte Lingling invited her to have tea on Cake Island. She had to go there quickly to spy on the information. Even if it's not for the world government, it's still for Happy Street. But now Stussy quit, turned around and became the mistress of the Warhammer pirates, and gave birth to a baby son to the famous Orgrim. Although there is no saying in this world that mother is more valuable than son. But I have to say that just because Stussy has a son, her position in the Warhammer pirates has been very stable. If nothing else, that guy Shiji is definitely the one who supports her. That woman is no longer on the same level as us. She is a bit more advanced. Now that we have met, do you dare to call her Stussy? Isn't it allowed to add the word queen to show respect? Although Morgans didn't look at Dufeld, he responded with a sarcastic tone in his mouth. Yes, among them, Charlotte Lingling is still playing tricks and dares to send them invitations. But Stu 11 is obviously no longer in this range, and Charlotte Lingling can no longer play with her. I'm really envious, Wheelmit suddenly spoke with emotion. Dufeld's relationship with the Warhammer pirates is not very good, and there is no particularly in-depth cooperation. Even when the Warhammer pirates entered Avalon Island and caused a massacre, they also used their black gold to lend money. He extorted a large amount of money from them using some unfounded ease. After that, although Orgrim was also nervous in his hands, he never found him in the dark world. After going back and forth, the black gold loan business in Avalon has no relationship with the Warhammer pirates. Fortunately, Avalon became more and more prosperous later on, and many people owed him a lot of money to Dufeld just to enjoy themselves here. It seems that business has improved a bit, but that's about it. On the contrary, Umit's shipping business was booming in Avalon. Umit had always wanted to get on the line with Orgrim, but the problem was that he did not have such a way. I once saw Orgrim in Avalon, but maybe because Orgrim was taking a nap, I didn't notice him. The last person to receive him was the little Lolita Sphinx. Umit wanted to discuss business and cooperation with her, the result is self-evident. Although the process and results are both unpleasant. But Umit had no complaints against the Warhammer pirates because of this. On the contrary, he hoped to see Orgrim and establish a relationship with him. Because Umit has completely recognized and believed in one thing, that is, in the future, Avalon will gradually grow into the largest window island and the largest platform island in the New World connected to the Dark World. Let's see, Avalon Island was originally one of the islands with the largest arms smuggling in the New World. Later, after joining forces with the Beast Pirates, Kaido, who had a slightly chaotic business in the New World, also brought them to Wano country. The arms sales point is located in Avalon. For a time, the two big guys who controlled 9/10 of the arms business in the Dark World were all selling arms in Avalon. Almost all the smuggled arms in the world were circulated from Avalon. How much smuggling shipping business will this drive? As the arms business took root in Avalon, the businessmen at the bottom and middle levels of the Dark World were very happy to move to Avalon and bring their small businesses with them. In addition, Avalon also has the world's largest deep-sea free trade zone and is engaged in unique deep-sea transactions, connected to Fishman Island's specialty channels. As this channel gradually grows and the deep-sea free trade zone continues to prosper, countless smuggling ships from all over the world come and go here. For Wheelmit, 30% of his business now depends on Avalon. Yes, although it is only 30%, Umit has almost enveloped the entire dark world and the entire worldwide smuggling business. In other words, Avalon monopolizes 30% of all smuggling-related business in the world. Judging from the channels and up and down relationship chain, Avalon is simply Umit's father. As long as Avalon refuses his business, 30% of Umit's business will collapse. In this case, can he not want to be with the Orgrim brothers? It was nothing at first, but I wasn't the only one who couldn't keep up with the master of Orgrim. In the blink of an eye, that woman Stacey actually became Orgrim's wife and gave birth to a son for him. Umit was so envious that he vomited blood. He really wished that he was also a beautiful woman and could have a relationship with Orgrim. Unfortunately, he is not. The reason why she knew that a war was likely to break out on Butter Island this time was that even Charlotte Lingling might not care about whether anyone would not come to attend a tea party or something like that. But Umit still came because he felt that there was a great possibility that he could see Orgrim with his own eyes here. At that time, no matter the victory or defeat, or how the war is resolved, he can let his ship follow after it is over. Maybe he will have a chance to say a few words to Orgrim. Wouldn't the business be even better by then? Dufeld glanced at Morgans and said, "What are you doing? You seem to be looking forward to it." Morgans grinned and said with a smile on his face, "Of course I am looking forward to it, Feld. It's just you and me. This tea party doesn't have much to do with it, your business is not involved, but for me, this is the core of whether I can be popular and drink well in the future, ha 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 ha. In the war between the top powers in the New World, I am afraid that even the strongest man Newgate, who has not been seen for a long time, will appear. Once I take some good photos here, my soul will be excited. You're a birdie who can't fly. If Newgate comes and sinks Butter Island to the bottom of the sea, we might be able to swim to save our lives, but you just wait to die." Umit smiled and said sarcastically. As a deep current, he is not only good at shipping, he is also a good swimmer. Morgans looked at Umit with some disdain and said, "Don't worry. The big news I have seen with my own eyes is more than the rice you have eaten. I have a good relationship with the Lord Orgrim. He will not ignore death. I don't know if it's an illusion, but I feel like you're showing off to me." Umit grinned slightly and said. "Ha ha 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 ha." Yes, Morgans laughed and said. Umit did not refute him. After all, this should be a fact. Morgans often used this matter to brag. For example, he was in the Holy Land, Mary Joa, taking pictures of Orgrim on the Void Throne. No one is sure, it's a coincidence. Therefore, most people believe that Orgrim discussed it with Morgans, the Birdman, before going to marry Joa. Here, it is reasonable for them to have some friendship. Just when Umit wanted to say something, Duffield suddenly said, "Here we come." As soon as he finished speaking, as expected, the castle door was opened. Then, Charlotte Lingling was still wearing the slightly retarded pink nightgown, wearing a captain's hat, and walked out of the castle with her huge body. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 372. Charlotte Lingling is very tall and looks fat. The whole person looks like an inflated balloon. And because of her powerful defense that is almost impossible to break through with conventional attacks, Charlotte Lingling is nicknamed the Steel Balloon. Because her body was unusually large, her steps were very heavy when she walked, making Charlotte Lingling look anything but ladylike. Instead, he looked like a rampaging monster. Smoothie walked out with Charlotte Lingling. Those long legs are simply ridiculously long, and she is worthy of being a beauty from the long-legged tribe. Smoothie looks about 20 years old this year, still very young. But her expression was slightly proud, as if something good was waiting for her. And besides Smoothie, there is Charlotte Comport, the eldest daughter of the Big Mom Pirates. Don't tell me, this eldest daughter really looks like Charlotte Lingling in terms of appearance. Soon, with heavy steps, Charlotte Lingling led a few people to the tea party stage. There was no need for a microphone or anything like that. Charlotte Lingling said with a smile in her eyes. Welcome, friends, to my Big Mom Pirates tea party. Thank you for coming. The rest of the people, including Morgan's everyone inside, applauded together. After all, this bit of face must be given to Charlotte Lingling. Then, Charlotte Lingling began to give her acceptance speech and the like. In short, she went over and over again, just saying a few words, thank you for this, thank you for that. Unlike Kaido, Kaido appears to be a reckless man, but Orgrim has personally experienced that this bastard is actually a cultural person. As for Charlotte Lingling, she is really uneducated. He was an orphan since he was a child. Not long after he was adopted, he went to sea with Bayo Bayo and became a pirate. He had no chance to receive any cultural education. I stood there whining for a long time and talked a lot, but it seemed very boring. If it weren't for her identity and strength. These big guys down there probably can't stand it for a long time. But Charlotte Lingling didn't feel anything was wrong. On the contrary, she even felt that everyone applauded her from time to time, which meant that she was speaking well. He kept talking, which made the bosses below feel miserable and unable to express their feelings. It feels like someone is feeding you shit, but because of that person's special status, you have to eat the same shit. After eating it, I have to say it tastes really good. Brother Jings is not in such pain. Fortunately, Katakuri saw something was wrong, and it seemed that many people had a look of helplessness and pain in their eyes. So from a distance away, Katakuri took out his pocket watch and raised his head at Charlotte Lingling on the stage. Only then did Charlotte Lingling realize that she had said too much. So she grinned and said with a big smile, okay, that's enough polite words. Today's tea party has two themes. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and the atmosphere of the tea party became a little more relaxed. Charlotte Lingling also felt it, but she thought it was because everyone was interested in the next two topics, and she never thought it was her fault. The first one, the pride of my Charlotte family, my 14th daughter, Charlotte Smoothie, will officially become the new dessert general. At this point, our Big Mom Pirate team will have 3 generals. Star. Collectively known as the 3 dessert stars, Charlotte Lingling declared loudly. Charlotte Smoothie also took a step forward, and a smile appeared on her originally cold and arrogant face, as if the iceberg had dissipated. I have to say that, except for his exaggerated figure, Smoothie looks pretty good. She didn't inherit her mother's shortcomings at all. Shows the Charlotte family, the special existence of the Big Mom Pirates. Although any child born to Charlotte Lingling will inevitably become a cotter of their pirate group or even various ministers of Totland and all nations after they reach adulthood or show their talents. But above this, there is another special existence. That is the General Star system. The General Star represents the best children of the Charlotte family. Currently, the number 1 General Star is Charlotte Katakuri. This man has a good reputation on the sea and is called the perfect man. At the beginning, the position of Shokusing was specially prepared for him by Charlotte Lingling to show her love and appreciation for Katakuri. In fact, it is precisely because of this incident that the Big Mom Pirates are somewhat unstable within the group. Now that Charlotte Lingling is suppressing them, there is no problem. Once this dead old woman dies, the Big Mom Pirates and the Charlotte family may immediately break up. Because Katakuri is the second son. Yes, there is a big brother above him, Charlotte Lingling's eldest son, Perospero. Although Perospero did not receive the title of general, he is Charlotte Lingling's first child after all, and he is also the Minister of Candy, and his strength is not weak at all, and can even be said to be quite powerful. It's just that he seems a bit low-key, so he seems to be inconspicuous. In fact, the relationship between Perospero and Katakuri is very good. Katakuri is not a heartless person, so he respects his only brother. And Perospero is also a very personable guy, and he also takes great care of his younger brother. But if the time comes to fight for inheritance, Pero will not let go. Nowadays, there are two factions of candidates in the Big Mom Pirates. One faction is Katakuri's three brothers, and they support Katakuri with some younger brothers and sisters. Another faction was led by Pero, who also had many brothers and sisters supporting him. However, these are not listed for now. Originally, the general star was specially set for Katakuri by Charlotte Lingling. Katakuri's performance was also perfect, and she almost never let Charlotte Lingling down. Later, this dead old woman discovered that the name General Star seemed to be able to inspire her children to strive for progress. At the same time, this name, because of Katakuri, seemed to be quite influential on the sea. So soon, Charlotte Lingling formulated a system for selecting generals. The most outstanding ones will be selected from among the children to become the stars of the Big Mom Pirates and the Charlotte family, as the true flagships and leaders. Pero had the qualifications to become a general, but the first general was Katakuri. How could he, the eldest brother, have the nerve to become the second best? So all this time, Pero has never held this position. Before Smoothie, the second general was Charlotte Cracker. His performance is indeed not as powerful as Pero, nor as perfect as Katakuri. But among the brothers and sisters, Cracker is also a very powerful guy. In the future, the three general stars will also be converted into 4 general stars, multiple snags. However, Snag was unlucky. Not long after he became a general, he was beaten to death by the strange monk Urki. Charlotte Lingling felt that he lost to a newcomer, which simply brought shame to the name of the star. Therefore, the number of 4 general stars has returned to the number of 3 general stars. Although Smoothie is young, he has been fighting with the Big Mom Pirates since he was a teenager. In the past few years, he also performed well in the low-level war with the Warhammer Pirates. Therefore, it still has a good reputation on the sea. When she came out to serve as a general, the big guys who came to the tea party were only slightly surprised, but then they recognized her and started applauding. Charlotte Lingling was also very satisfied when she saw this. When the atmosphere was almost over, she laughed again and said, "Ah ha 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 ha, the second theme is also related to my daughter. Come on, compart." Compart listened to his mother's call and took a step forward with a smile on his face. "My eldest daughter, Compart, will become the Queen of Germa, marry the Vinsmoke family, and become the wife of Gagey," Charlotte Lingling declared loudly. Unlike Charlotte Smoothie becoming a general, this time, there was no surprise in everyone's eyes. Because the marriage between Germa and the Big Mom Pirates had long been, everyone has already known about it. There is no surprise at all. Gagey is at a table under the stage at this time. Although he is also a member of the Dark World, after all, he does not have enough seats to talk to Woomy. Compared with those senior big guys, they didn't want to sit there. At this time, after hearing Charlotte Lingling's roll call, she looked at the smiling face on the stage, looking at her with a little tenderness. Special, Gagey almost spit out the dessert he just took into his mouth. Ugly, so ugly. As expected of you, Charlotte Lingling's eldest daughter. But for Germa's great cause. Although Jiaji felt very depressed, he still stood up and waved to everyone with a smile. It seemed that he felt very glorious and happy. The corners of his eyes were a little moist. He must have been excited to cry, right? Morgans, the bastard birdman, was the first to take the lead in applauding. He clapped his hands while laughing and said, "Ha ha 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 ha, His Majesty Gagey and Princess Compart are a perfect match. They seem to be a match made in heaven. This marriage is, I agree. A talented man and a beautiful woman, they are a perfect match. How can you, a monster, agree with me? If you want to agree, I am the one who agrees on behalf of everyone." Dufeld also had a faint evil smile on his lips, and he joked. After saying that, he clapped even more enthusiastically, as if he was getting married. Gagey had a slightly stiff face. With a smile, he kept nodding at everyone, but he didn't know if it was an illusion. He always felt that there was a hint of ridicule and contempt in the eyes of these people looking at him. This made the proud Gagey feel very unhappy. I was so happy that for a moment, I felt dissatisfied with this marriage. Charlotte Lingling didn't care about this, seeing that everyone was very enthusiastic. She laughed again and said, from now on, Germa and we, the Big Mom Pirates, are a family. I need to take good care of all my good friends from now on. Regarding the wedding, I plan to hold it in a week. If you are here this time, please don't leave for now. Many big bosses who were originally lucky and thought they would leave the place where this was wrong after attending the tea party today, listened to Charlotte Lingling's words. Their expressions did not change, but in their hearts they scolded this dead old woman 10,000 times. It seems like this damn Charlotte Lingling has to drag them into the water. Not to mention that a war is very likely to break out here. Who among you is not a big boss? Everyone is very busy, right? Can it be faster? Just let Gagey enter the bridal chamber today. Compert will give birth to the baby as soon as possible tomorrow, and the process will be completed in 2 days. What? In this case, wouldn't the child be of Gagey's bloodline? What the hell does this have to do with me? Does that guy Gagey still have the guts to not be this father? Come on, put on your hat. Although they felt aggrieved, the big guys still applauded. Charlotte Lingling smiled with satisfaction again, opened her mouth and said, in that case, we. But this time, before he finished speaking, a siren sounded from the Butter Island port. Then, soon, the entire Butter Island was ringing with piercing sirens. Charlotte Lingling's face changed, and she said with a touch of anger in her heart, so fast. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 373. Without Charlotte Lingling giving any orders, Katakuri and others responded quickly, and all the cotters and ministers began to take up their positions. It seemed that they had foreseen this kind of thing and had already formulated a response plan. Charlotte Lingling did not go out directly. Instead, she looked at everyone at the tea party and said, "Don't worry, no one can poop or pee on my body." Charlotte Lingling, what she said was very simple and crude. But after hearing this, the bosses looked at the pastries in front of them. Why did they suddenly feel that they didn't taste good? Meanwhile, in the waters of Butter Island. At this time, in the G-5 naval warship, Jun was standing on the towering watchtower, holding a monocular telescope against his left eye and looking at the situation in the sea ahead. The beast pirates, as expected, was Kaido the first to attack. This guy really can't hold himself back anymore, Jun murmured softly. That's right, in the sea at this time, dozens of pirate ships flying the flag of the beast's pirates are heading towards Butter Island. There is currently no fire contact between the two sides, but some pirate ships from the Hamid's Corps and the Big Mom pirate group have begun to adjust their formations. Just waiting for the beast pirates' warships to come within range of fire and fire 2 cannons at each other. Once Kaido takes action, it means that Orgrim, who is allied with him, must also decide to participate in this war. If he comes, the old guy with white beard will definitely not stand idly by. Sure enough, everything will. I followed the script written by those 4 guys. Jun put away the telescope in his hand and murmured thoughtfully. Then, she took out the bug phone directly from her pocket and dialed. Not long after, the phone was picked up. A strong and majestic voice came. "How about Jun?" the Warring States General asked over the telephone bug. "Unfortunately, things happened as you expected. The Beast's pirates fleet has already launched an attack on Butter Island. However, the whereabouts of the Warhammer pirates and Whitebeard pirates have not yet been discovered. but they won't miss this good show, Jun responded quickly. Yeah, warring states whispered first, and then said protect your own safety and observe the situation as much as possible. We still need to know this first-hand intelligence and news. Clear Jun nodded and responded. After a slight pause, she asked unwillingly, Admiral, are our Navy really not going to participate? The warring states general's expression was also a little helpless, and he said, Jun, it's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't. How to participate? If there are elite troops who take advantage of the chaos to make a surprise attack, Jun whispered. Do you think they will not guard against this move? Okay, let them figure it out this time. The warring states general shook his head and said with emotion. Although Jun was still unwilling, he finally nodded and said, yes, General. It's up to you. How do you feel about G-5? Do you want to come back? After they finish fighting this time, the headquarters will select candidates for generals. You have great hope, the warring states general suddenly spoke. Jun was silent for a moment, and finally shook his head and said, no need, G-5 is also a navy. I am the same wherever I am, as long as I have justice in my heart, that's fine. As for the general candidate, I don't care much about the name. Porisalino felt that he cared about the extra allowance. The warring states general suddenly smiled and said, I'm not short of money, so grabbing it directly from the pirates seems to give me a greater sense of accomplishment. Anyway, I have a G-5 navy and I don't have to hand over the loot to my headquarters. Jun also smiled and said, ah ha ha ha, it seems that you really had a good time there, huh, although you don't care about the title of general candidate, we can't ignore it, so let's do it. I will fight for you. After the warring states general smiled, he said, can I still be qualified to be a candidate for general if I am not serving as a lieutenant general in my headquarters? Jun joked. Ha ha ha, you are special. Sengoku Admiral smiled and said. Although Jun is now in G-5, her past resources and friendships in the headquarters cannot be suddenly wiped out. Candidates for generals need to be discussed and selected by the senior Navy generals. 5 to 6 are expected to be selected this time. Among them, Kuzan, Sakaski, and Porisalino are the 3 who have been confirmed, and then 2 or 3 candidates are expected to be selected. Her identity, ability, and qualifications are all here. If she hadn't gone to G-5, she would have been qualified as a general candidate. But now, it's not impossible to operate. In short, pay close attention to the situation over there and don't let anything go wrong. The warring states general gave another warning. Clear. Jun answered very concisely and clearly. Then the 2 hung up the phone. At the same time, on the Brachiosaurus, a ship of the beast pirates. Quinn's round and fat figure, standing on the deck, he was the commander of this frontal breakthrough battle. At this time, he was holding a cigar in his mouth and looking at dozens of his ships, which were approaching Butter Island and would soon enter. It looks like the opponent's firepower is within range. I don't know if Boss Kaido and the others have arrived. Quinn smacked his lips and murmured. That's right, in this frontal breakthrough and landing battle, Kaido was not in the sequence, not even Fire Calamity Yin. Brother Quinn, we're about to enter fire coverage, a pirate boy suddenly said. This boy is obviously a man-made devil fruit user. He has 4 arms, 2 of which are human, and the remaining 2 look like insect arms. They look a bit ferocious. Hiss, Quinn slowly inhaled a puff of smoke, then exhaled it, and said, fire the gun first. Light up the fireworks for my dance party. As soon as Quinn finished speaking, his younger brother pressed a button in his hand. The next second, the entire Beast Pirates fleet seemed to have received the order. All of a sudden, the formation started to change from a vertical formation to a horizontal formation. They lined up and turned the ship around, facing the side of the ship towards the Butter Island garrison fleet. At the same time, the outer wheels and propellers started running, changing the power mode, and forced the ship to approach Butter Island sideways, which seemed a bit unscientific. Then, the entire fleet seemed to be silent for a moment. Then the huge radiophone bug on the Brachiosaurus began to play cheerful music. This music was like a signal. As soon as I remembered it, countless artillery pieces of the beast pirates' fleet began to roar. Although Kaido is in the cold weapons business, his cannon-making technology has always been among the best in the world. So in terms of range, it is more powerful than the Big Mom pirates. The artillery over there can't hit Quinn's side, but the artillery on Quinn's side is just enough to bring the opposing fleet within the attack range. The flames of war began to burn, and the cannons roared. Black smoke continued to emerge from various ships, darkening the sky here. At the same time, Quinn, a cheerful guy, and his two younger brothers, just danced on the deck. Yeah. If she loses weight, she will be too popular, so she deliberately refuses to lose weight. This is Quinn. Quinn sang and danced at the same time. Not to mention, this guy danced with a strong sense of rhythm. He looked a little silly, but he looked very good. The suppression of firepower suddenly made the sea of beasts the pirates had the upper hand. But soon, the fleet of the Big Mom pirates on the opposite side also began to change. First, the beast pirates also entered their attack range, and the artillery began to fire at each other. Then, every ship, all of them had been soul transformed by Homais, and they seemed to be some strange devices. I saw a ship with Homais, and the collision angle of the bow suddenly came to life, and it started to scream, and then, its mouth suddenly opened. Zhang spit out a dark and thick barrel from his mouth. The barrel was quickly adjusted to point at the Brachiosaurus, and then there was a muffled sound of bang. There was no smell of gunpowder and no trace of gunpowder smoke. But a huge black cannonball hit Quinn. "What a good way to disturb my interest," Quinn muttered as he jumped. Just when the huge cannonball was about to fall, Quinn suddenly spun around and turned half a circle on the spot. At the same time, the already very strong figure also appeared again. It changed and became a little bigger. With the force of rotation, a thick tail grew from behind his tail vertebra, and the tail whipped towards the flying cannonball. "Although I'm chubby, my body is all muscle." "Yeah," Quinn sang a line very rhythmically. Snapped, with a crisp sound, his strong and powerful tail hit the huge cannonball directly, blocking all the powerful force attached to it. He even pulled out the cannonball that was as big as a small pirate ship in the opposite direction, flew 200 to 300 meters away, and smashed directly into the sea. At the same time, the firepower of the Big Mom pirates also came overwhelmingly towards this side. The originally intact warships on both sides began to be smashed and damaged. Quinn stopped his dancing, exhaled smoke again, looked at the roaring enemy ships in the distance, and whispered softly, "The war has begun." As soon as he finished speaking, a cannonball hit his ship. Fortunately, the hull was very hard and there was no damage. "Boss Quinn, should we speed up and get closer? Although our fleet artillery is stronger, there are too many of them." A boy braved the artillery attack and rushed to Quinn's side and asked. The corners of Quinn's mouth raised slightly, and he put on an evil smile and said, "Don't worry, just wait and see. We are not fighting alone, we are a combined fleet." A lot of information in this is only available to Quinn. Only then did he realize that the younger brother obviously didn't understand and looked at Quinn in surprise. But before he could ask anything, suddenly, the situation changed. In the central area where the two sides exchanged fire, the originally calm sea suddenly became turbulent. Then, Quinn's expression changed and he said, "Here they come. Warhammer pirates." As soon as he finished speaking, a blue pirate ship suddenly jumped out from under the sea. The one hanging there was none other than the Warhammer pirates. Regimental flag. Shining Thunder element number. Quinn recognized the ship immediately. Then, like mushrooms after a spring rain, dozens of warships flying the flag of the Warhammer pirates burst out from under the sea, closing the distance with the Big Mom pirates' fleet in one fell swoop. The lightning walks with me, the storm obeys my command. Ennilu stood on the bow of the ship, holding a ferocious battle axe in his hand, his body shining with dazzling lightning, and roared. The moment his voice fell, the sky changed color, and dark clouds fell down. Then, countless thunder fell from the sky, hitting the battleship of the Big Mom pirates accurately. On the other ship, the Sphinx was holding a huge Gatling gun in his hand, with a look of madness and bloodlust on his face. With a smile, he stepped on the fence, half of his body leaned out of the ship, and faced a pirate ship, and fierce firepower burst out. Ha 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 ha, get rid of these bastards. The First Legion of Avalon, attack, the Sphinx yelled crazily. In just one encounter, several Big Mom pirates' warships were directly hit and exploded. A cotter of the Big Mom pirates asked very frightened and angry, where are the sea slugs? Why didn't our surveillance sea slugs issue an early warning? Fishmen. Many fish. Here they come. Quick, don't let them get close to the battleship. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 374. Seeing the originally stalemate and numerically unfavorable situation, it was suddenly turned around by the Warhammer pirates. Quinn also laughed excitedly and said, "Look, the opportunity has come, lean over, land on Butter Island first, and kill those damn idiots who like desserts." The battleships of the Beast Pirates also began to move quickly. He changed direction, changed from horizontal to vertical, and started to accelerate towards Butter Island. Under the sea, Aaron was swimming forward quickly with a serrated sword on his back. He was very excited at this time, and it had been a few years since he came to Avalon. They had been moving bricks before, and then the First Legion of Avalon began to be formed. Aaron immediately signed up to participate in the conscription. Since he is an old member of the first construction team, he is an acquaintance who can speak a few words to Neiman. In addition, in the formation of the First Legion of Avalon, priority was given to the selection of older members who knew the basics and had higher credibility. So Aaron quickly joined the First Legion of Avalon very smoothly. Then, relying on his talent and strength, which were extremely outstanding among the Murlocs, this sawtooth shark man successfully joined the ranks of the first batch of Murloc officers. Became the captain of their company. Then, because of Neiman's care, Aaron directly led his company to become a defensive force around the Warhammer Pirates station. It feels like a Praetorian Guard, but not that close. In short, he had more opportunities for contact and communication with various cotters. As he got to know more about the officers of the Warhammer Pirates, Aaron's sense of belonging to the Warhammer Pirates became stronger. After that, the First Legion of Avalon also had a few small fights in the Evernight Sea. However, due to responsibilities, Aaron did not participate. Therefore, I didn't get any credit. I saw several brothers who came out of Fishman Street were promoted, but I still didn't move. Aaron was also a little anxious. But he knew better that as long as he had the opportunity to make meritorious deeds, with these connections and qualifications, he could be promoted faster. Even becoming a leader of the Warhammer Pirates in the future is not impossible. Now, the opportunity to make a contribution has come. Battle at Butter Island. Whoever can be the first to land on Butter Island and get the title of First to Land Warrior will be able to get the first achievement in the First Legion of Avalon. Of course, according to military orders, we must break through. Otherwise, with so many Murlocs, we can all dive together in the deep sea and compete with each other to see who can swim faster. On the other hand, if they are sneaking around like this and the backup troops can't keep up, even if they go up, they will die. So Aaron did not choose to be sneaky. He wanted to prove his bravery here and rely on hard power to get the title of First Arrival Warrior of the First Legion of Avalon. The figure shuttled through the sea very fast, and Aaron crushed a few wandering sea slugs to death. These were all fish that slipped through the net. Before the start of the raid, The reason why the first legion of Avalon was slower to appear than Quinn was because some Murloc warriors with special talents were quickly solving these sea slugs to achieve unexpected results. In just a few breaths, Aaron came to a battleship of the Big Mom pirates. The figure showed no intention of stopping. He suddenly raised his head, letting the jagged nose bridge pierce straight towards cabin. His feet swayed and accelerated, and Aaron shot at the ship like a sharp arrow in the sea water. Inside the cabin, in the power room, several members of the Big Mom Pirates group were frantically running the outer wheel device, trying to speed up the ship. "Hurry! Move it," a guy who looked like a junior cotter, holding a whip in his hand, roared. But as soon as he finished speaking, the cabin was suddenly hit. Then, before he could react, the wall of the ship beside him was directly broken. A big hole was opened, and sea water poured in instantly. At the same time, he seemed to find a figure rushing towards him. With a sting, the young cotter felt a pain in his chest, and then his feet were directly suspended in the air, as if he was picked up by something. "Same. Stop hanging on my nose, you idiot," Aaron cursed. At the same time, he suddenly knocked the little cotter away from his nose. Several pirate boys braved the pouring sea water and rushed towards Aaron with their swords waving. "Ha ha 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 ha, it seems I was very lucky and crashed directly into the power room. I will accept this ship of yours," Aaron laughed loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, he took off the huge serrated sword from his back. With his tyrannical strength, he swept the two pirates who were close to him with one sweep. Cut in half. In an instant, blood and water emerged like a fountain. When the body fell, the surrounding sea water poured in was also dyed red. Aaron was originally a shark murloc, and the shark murloc was far stronger than the other murlocs on the side. And became more bloodthirsty, especially when stimulated by the smell of blood. Aaron's eyes suddenly turned red, and driven by the atmosphere of war, fighting and the smell of blood, his whole person suddenly entered a state of rage. This in the power room, no one was his opponent, not to mention the water pouring in. Some people couldn't even stand, let alone cut people. After 3 or 5 breaths, the serrated sword in Aaron's hand was like a fan. Swept through the entire power room, bringing with it a mass of stumps and broken arms, and the water poured in was extremely scarlet. Aaron, who was red-eyed, did not stop his movements, kicked open the door of the power room, and walked over in the corridor of the cabin. "I kill and slash everyone I see. Since they are all minions, there are almost no enemies wherever this serrated sword passes. Occasionally, I encounter pirates who can use armed haki, but the dragon is stronger. Yes, unlike the original story, Avalon is in the New World." In order to ensure combat effectiveness, the First Legion not only teaches various fighting skills, but also the officers can learn armed color, domineering, and seeing and hearing is domineering. Aaron also knows these things, but he is not so outstanding. The Gatling gun in the Sphinx's hand kept spitting out tongues of fire, beating all the enemies on the deck in front of him into a bloody pulp. Then, she jumped from his own ship to the deck of the enemy ship. "Ha ha ha ha, why is there no movement? Just a few people? Or are they all hidden in the cabin below the deck?" The Sphinx put the Gatling gun on her shoulder and laughed arrogantly. But as soon as she finished speaking, the cabin door was suddenly slashed open with a knife, and the Sphinx was shocked. The Gatling gun was also aimed at that side. But before she could shoot, she saw the figure of a strong fishman, holding a serrated sword in his hand, with 2 knife blades hanging on his chest, but the injury not heavy, covered in blood, looking very ferocious and violent. "Who else?" As soon as Aaron rushed out, he roared. Then, in the blurry vision wet with blood, he spotted a figure that looked a bit small. He didn't care about so much, as long as he was on this enemy ship he kills the enemy, let alone children, old people, and babies. He slashes out with the big knife in his hand. Aaron, the Sphinx shouted as if she recognized this guy. Then, her arm transformed into a battle axe and stood in front of her, holding Aaron's knife. Someone called her name. Aaron was also a little surprised, and the restless murderous intention in his heart gradually dissipated. Then, he raised his hand and wiped the blood on his eyelids, and finally saw the other party's figure clearly. Sphinx sister, Aaron said with some surprise. Yes, Aaron and Sphinx actually know each other. It's a coincidence that Aaron works as a guard here at Avalon Station, and this guy Sphinx. They couldn't sit still, and after going back and forth, the two of them had some friendship, but it was just a nod. But at this time, being able to know each other meant that Aaron was lucky. How did you get out of it? Asked the Sphinx curiously. I attacked from under the sea, crashed directly into the power room, and then fought my way out. Aaron said without hesitation. Ha 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 ha, I just said why didn't this ship run away? It turned out to be you, the Sphinx laughed. Then, she asked with a somewhat surprised expression, so, you killed everyone on the ship? That's right. They were all hacked to death, Aaron said immediately. Are you so powerful? Yes, I have remembered it, and I will definitely ask you for credit when I return to Avalon, the Sphinx said with a big smile. Aaron was certain in his heart, and he smiled and said, thank you very much, sister. Ha 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 ha, you are very good. From now on, you will get along with me. If anyone dares to bully you, you will give me my name, Sphinx said very domineeringly. After a slight pause, she said again, of course, don't die here. Otherwise it's all nonsense. Clear? Sister, don't worry, I'm lucky. And I also want to win the title of the first warrior on Butter Island, so that I won't embarrass you, my eldest sister. Aaron raised his serrated machete and said very excitedly. Ha ha, yes. Go, 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 Sphinx said excitedly. If you can accept a Butter Island first arrival warrior as your younger brother, then you will have more bragging rights in the future. Sphinx is still very happy. As for whether he wants to become a first arrival warrior, impossible. This title is not given to the Cotters, but circulates within the First Legion of Avalon. Aaron didn't talk nonsense to Sphinx, nodded to her, and then plunged directly into he fell into the sea water and swam quickly towards the next pirate ship, towards Butter Island. The Sphinx was too lazy to stay on the ship any longer, and quickly jumped back on his car, shouting said, quick, keep moving forward, don't let my new little brother Aaron die in front. As soon as Sphinx finished speaking, a thunderbolt exploded directly from a pirate ship not far from the side. Then, an Ero's figure condensed directly from the thunderbolt, holding a hand the ferocious battle axe slashed out with a fierce blow. A very strange-looking figure was cut in half. But the figure did not shed blood or anything. On the contrary, it quickly merged together again. Great blessing, the Sphinx recognized that figure at a glance. This is exactly the ability of Charlotte Deifuku, Katakuri's younger brother, the lamp demon. All the old and new hatreds came to the Sphinx at once. In C's mind. After all, in the war with the Big Mom pirates 2 years ago, Sphinx suffered the loss of Charlotte Deifuku and Charlotte Owen. His face became crazy and bloodthirsty. Without caring about Aaron, Sphinx directly ordered the ship to turn around and move towards that side. Before the ship arrived, Sphinx grabbed the bolt of the Gatling gun. With a click, he turned on the safety, then roared and opened fire at Deifu's figure. Great blessing. I'll shoot you in the head. Go to hell, the Sphinx roared angrily. The Gatling gun in his hand spurted out flames, and countless bullets poured directly towards Owen. Deifu, who was originally controlling the Jinn to entangle Enelu, was startled, but at this time he had already dodged. It was too late. He was armed with a domineering look, and relied on the power of the armor to withstand the firepower of the Sphinx. Sphinx! How dare you, a loser, appear in front of me, Defu also roared angrily. Enlil! Leave this bastard to me. Get out of my way now, the Sphinx shot Defu angrily and yelled at Enlil. Please give me flowers and monthly tickets, big guys, give me some strength. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 375. Enlil would not dare to compete with the Sphinx, although his current strength is already very good. But when facing the Sphinx, there is always a feeling of childhood shadow. It was as if there was an invisible apple on his head, and he shuddered every time the Sphinx looked at him. So Anaru did not hesitate and gave up the fight with Defu. Without saying a word, he transformed into lightning and chased after the ships that were advancing towards the front. As the Sphinx approached Defu's battleship, he cursed, "You dare to say that I am a waste? If Master Chui hadn't ordered you not to kill him, and if your bastard brother Owen hadn't helped you, I would have been beaten to death. You're a loser. No one is protecting you today, go to hell." As soon as he finished speaking, Sphinx threw his Gatling on the deck and was about to go. The younger brother came over and picked it up despite the artillery bombardment. At the same time, the Sphinx also took off the two hand cannons hanging from his waist and fired at Defu crazily. Die, 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 the Sphinx roared with a laugh. When the two ships got close to each other, the Sphinx suddenly jumped from the deck towards the opposite side. As soon as he landed, he rolled twice on the ground. Dodged the slashing attack of the damp demon controlled by Defu, took out a grenade from his arms, and threw it directly at Defu's feet. Defu, who was originally planning to control the damp demon to chase and slash the Sphinx, was also worried. Panic, he had fought with the Sphinx before, so he knew that this bastard Loli was carrying good stuff and was extremely powerful. So without any hesitation, he directly chose to retreat, exerted force with his feet, and jumped behind the mast. Sure enough, as soon as he dodged, a loud sound of bang came, and violent blasts of air rushed out from both sides of him. Just hide, hide, hide. Are you still a man? A real man should be like my Mr. Chui. If I dare to shoot, he will catch it with his head, the Sphinx cursed as he climbed up from the deck, raised his hand and took out his revolver. With domineering power, he fired a few more shots at Defu. Defu also dodged while cursing, "You loser, I will definitely capture you alive later. You must have never experienced what it's like to be a woman, right? I want you to experience it when the time comes. Others will look down on your small body, but I am not afraid of being cold-blooded." Sphinx's face became even angrier, and she yelled as expected of the son of that dead old woman Charlotte Lingling, "The pirate group headed by a woman has sharp teeth and a sharp tongue, you can't learn anything else, but you have learned a lot about swearing. Aren't you cold-blooded? Do you have the guts to mess with that dead old woman of yours? Give him a son and see if he calls you brother or father." But as soon as the Sphinx finished speaking, Defu seemed to have seized the opportunity and controlled the damp demon man to chop off the Sphinx's back. Idiot, the Sphinx's eyes lit up, but he did not dodge. Instead, the revolver in his hand fired 3 rounds in a row, all of which hit Defu's chest. The bullets attached to the armed domineering force were in contact with Defu's. The haki created a counterattack, and with the kinetic energy of the firearm, it broke through the haki on Defu's chest, and opened several holes in the armor he wore. Fortunately, Defu's quality was not bad, and the bullet did not hit him. Entering his body only left 3 wounds on his chest. "Go to hell, you loser!" Defu roared with bloodshot eyes of shame and anger. "Battle shield," the Sphinx shouted. Her back was like a turtle, and a thick shield suddenly grew out. There were many spikes on the shield, which was very ferocious. The damp demon's knife slashed directly on this battle shield. It brought up a spark, but it did not hurt the Sphinx. "Do you think I am a fool? Idiot," the Sphinx mocked, and at the same time fired 2 shots at Defu. Defu was also stunned at this time, quickly dodged the bullets, and said in surprise, "Impossible, aren't you a weapon fruit ability user? Who says a war shield can't be used as a weapon?" Really uneducated, the Sphinx cursed arrogantly. The moment he finished speaking, the battle shield on the Sphinx's back suddenly launched all the barbs, directly blowing Defo's Jin into pieces. A cloud of smoke. "Hiding behind a puppet and sneaking around, that's all you idiot can do," the Sphinx laughed loudly. Defo rubbed his belly again, summoned another lamp demon from his side, and said with anger in his eyes seeking death. "Ha ha ha, are you angry? I have prepared a big gift for you. Take a good look at what it means to be a person with abilities." The Sphinx laughed wildly, then threw away the revolver with both hands and pressed it on the deck. "Assimilation," Sphinx shouted. An inexplicable power spread out from her body. Defo was shocked and said, "Impossible, it has only been less than 2 years since you gained the ability." "Don't compare me to a loser like you," Sphinx shouted. Yes, she indeed awakened her abilities before the war started. Compared to this, Orgrim is simply a younger brother within a younger brother. The original wooden deck began to gradually become steel, and separated from the hull piece by piece, floating in the air, and instantly formed countless muskets of different shapes. "Ha ha ha ha, there is no weapon in this world that I, the Sphinx, cannot use. I am the king of war. Go on a rampage." The king's army. Unlimited gun control, the Sphinx stood up and pointed a finger at Defo. The next moment, hundreds of muskets floating around her roared. In just a moment, bullets were like a rain curtain, heading towards Defo. It was covered over there. Defo was also shocked. He exerted force under his feet and trampled through the deck, making a big hole. Without hesitation, he rolled like a lazy ass and got under the deck. 2 handfuls the long-barreled musket appeared at the feet of the Sphinx, and the Sphinx stood firmly on it, controlling the spear to float in the air. As for what the principle is, I don't know, just asking is about ability. "Ha ha ha, you are still such an idiot, hiding. You can't avoid it," the Sphinx laughed. Then, the fluctuations in her ability spread again, and the Defo's ship was gradually dismembered, turning into countless sharp blades flying in the air. Thanks to Orgrim, she was not here, otherwise I would have called the Sphinx golden sparkling. There is nothing in this world that cannot be broken by fire power. If there is, it is only because the fire power is not enough. A flash of light flashed in the eyes of the Sphinx, and then, countless sharp blades fired out bullets, bombarding the dismembered pirate ship. Then, countless smoke and dust exploded, obscuring the surrounding prying eyes. Devil fruit power awakening. According to the intelligence, it was obviously less than 2 years since the Sphinx gained his abilities, and he actually awakened. Jun was standing on the watchtower of the warship at this time, holding a delicate monocular telescope in her hand, observing the situation there, and murmured incredulously. She is also the energy awakener of the animal type and the phantom beast species, and generally speaking, most people believe that animal type abilities are easier to awaken than other abilities. But even so, it took Jun many years to achieve it. But just now, she discovered that the rampaging lowly Sphinx actually awakened the superhuman ability of the weapon fruit in less than 2 years. Isn't this cheating? The Navy also has a general understanding of each cotter of the Warhammer pirates. Evaluation. To be honest, Sphinx's previous score in this evaluation was not very high. Most naval admirals, including Jun, believed that Sphinx's strength was limited, and the reason why it could become Warhammer the core cotters of the pirate group may be just because Orgrim is more nostalgic. How can they still be with Orgrim today without looking at Hank and his like? The Sphinx may be the same. But at this time, Jun has understood that Sphinx just didn't find her own direction before, so she seemed a bit weak. Now, she has awakened her own abilities. The strength of any person with awakened abilities cannot be underestimated. What's more, it's her. And this ability is so perfect with her fighting style. If others can use this ability at 80%, the Sphinx can use it at 120%. Is the reason why Orgrim values the Sphinx so much because of his foresight? Although he is a bastard pirate, his eyes are very vicious. After thinking for a while, Jun whispered softly. She thought that the weapon fruit was chosen by Orgrim for the Sphinx. After all, it belonged to Doflamingo. The relationship between Doflamingo and Orgrim was, simply. So Jun mistakenly thought that Orgrim had already discovered the hidden shining point of the Sphinx. In fact, Orgrim still doesn't know that the little Lolita Sphinx has awakened her own abilities and her strength has greatly increased. From the beginning of the battle, she can directly overpower Charlotte Defuku. Positive. Otherwise, he would have been shocked, and he was glad that he did not mock the Sphinx and say something harsh about standing upside down and having diarrhea. Otherwise, all my fame will be reduced to nothing. As expected, the Warhammer pirates are all monsters, and none of them live up to their fame. It seems that Hank needs to be paid attention to in the future. Maybe he also has some unexplored shining points, Jun thought for a while and said to himself. Now that the front lines of the Big Mom pirates are all in chaos, it is only a matter of time before the Beasts pirates and the Warhammer pirates attack Butter Island. But this it was not beyond Jun's expectation. After all, this was 2 against 1. Even if Charlotte Lingling had prepared in advance, if Orgrim and Kaido's fleet couldn't even reach the island, then it's too wasteful. But even now, Jun still didn't find Orgrim and Kaido, which made her a little strange. She was also observing the surrounding air, but she didn't notice anything flying. Empty ship. Do you think you can defeat the Big Mom pirates with just the fleet? The 2 of them shouldn't be such idiots, Jun muttered in confusion. Big sister. Big sister, while Jun was thinking about these questions, a naval captain under the mast shouted to her. Jun's thoughts were interrupted, and he looked down very unhappy and said, "What are you shouting for? Do you want me to kill someone?" The naval captain was not calmed down by Jun at all. It seemed that he was used to Jun's violent temper. After getting Jun's response, he quickly said, "Sister, Major General Fergo is watching from behind." The ship found traces of the Whitebeard fleet. Dozens of ships were heading towards Butter Island. Sure enough, there was no way that old guy would let Orgrim and Kaido kill Charlotte Lingling. The pupils in Jun's eyes shrank slightly and he said, "Now that Newgate has appeared, what on earth is that bastard Orgrim up to?" Jun then thought about this problem again. However, after thinking about it, he still had no idea. After all, Jun knew too little information. Since Stussy betrayed the world government and the Warhammer pirates and Happy Street joined forces, the Navy, no matter whether it is the CP organization or the CP agency, it is difficult to find out the real information about the Warhammer pirates. They are becoming more and more difficult to deal with. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 376. The Whitebeard pirates' large fleet is quickly heading towards Butter Island. Unlike Orgrim and Kaido, neither of them appeared in their own fleet. On the contrary, Whitebeard appears to be very upright and does not play tricks with you at all. The huge Moby Dick, the huge white whale, is at the front of the fleet and is the pilot flagship. Holding the long-handled sword Kongyunki in his hand, the white-bearded Edward Newgate, known as the strongest man in the world, was standing domineeringly on the deck. Chi wore his upper body covered with the captain's cloak that moved with the wind, and his straight white beard hung on his face like a crescent moon. There was a glint in his eyes, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, with a smile of anticipation. That's right, the smile of anticipation. Ever since Roger died and Shiji retired, Newgate rarely fights with people anymore. The most recent one that was pretty good was that guy Crocodile, but that was all a few years ago. Moreover, in that battle, Newgate was very unhappy due to the betrayal of Crocodile's men. So in the past few years, Newgate has been unable to use his energy. In today's world, there are not many enemies in Newgate who can make him look at him with all his strength and make him look at them with all his strength. The big guys from the Navy headquarters are one of them. But Newgate's ambitions are not very big, and he poses no fundamental threat to the world government. His biggest threat is that his abilities and strength are too strong, enough to destroy the world. Therefore, as long as he does not go crazy, the Navy is not willing to provoke him. The same is true for the world government. Although many people in the sea call this era the Age of Whitebeard, to be honest, the world government doesn't care about this at all. As long as his white beard doesn't destroy the world, he can do whatever he wants. Apart from that, there was almost no one who could threaten him in Newgate. Until the past 2 years, the rising star Orgrim led the Warhammer pirates to catch up in the New World. Both their hard and soft power have grown by leaps and bounds, becoming comparable to the Whitebeard pirates. Next, there are Hyaku Shaokaido and Big Mom Charlotte Lingling, both of whom can be said to have accumulated a lot of experience. Counting Newgate himself, the 4 great pirates had completely suppressed the rest of the New World's forces. There are only 4 of them that can be called a first-class pirate group. Therefore, in the pirate camp, there are only 4 of them who can compete with Newgate. The rest of the King's Shishibukai and his ilk are all considered silver medal players and are not in Newgate's eyes at all. He hadn't looked forward to a war like this in a long time. Although his temperament is relatively comfortable among pirates, after being comfortable for so many years, he still needs a vigorous battle to vent his power that has nowhere to use. Now, the opportunity has come. That bastard Orgrim joined forces with Kaido. And sure enough, he chose to take action at Charlotte Lingling's tea party, hoping to kill Charlotte Lingling in one fell swoop. But this is just a superficial phenomenon, and Newgate also knows that Orgrim and Kaido should not have high hopes for this. Because the 2 of them are not idiots, and they are not idiots themselves. How could he sit back and watch these 2 guys kill Charlotte Lingling? If they kill 2 Charlotte Lingling today, then even if he is the strongest man, even if the Whitebeard pirates are the strongest pirate group today. But with the cooperation of these 2 guys, it is estimated that he will capsize in less than 5 years. Therefore, Newgate had already seen the essence of this battle. The most fundamental purpose of Orgrim and Kaido is not to kill Charlotte Lingling. But he wants to clear his name through a battle and declare to the world that in this era, it is not just his white beard who has the final say. Orgrim and Kaido are also capable of being equal to Whitebeard. The invitation letter to the tea party of the Big Mom Pirates was actually an invitation letter sent to him by Orgrim and Kaido. Although it was not expressed in writing, it was a dignified invitation to Newgate to enter the battle. But it didn't matter. Although Newgate saw the essence behind the war, he still chose to accept the invitation and join the war. Because he has a white beard, he is always fearless and never afraid of challenges. Want to be on an equal footing with me, Newgate? Then let's have a solid fight. If your strength can meet my approval, then it's okay for you to sit here. If you can't reach the level of strength, then I'm sorry, if you should lie down, you have to lie down. If you make a mistake, you must admit it. If you are beaten, you must stand at attention. Newgate grabbed Kong Yunki's hand and moved his fingers excitedly, opening and closing them. It could be seen that this was a sign that his hand was itchy. Don't tell me that I'm too disappointed, Newgate murmured softly. At this moment, on the sea in the distance, a figure flew through the air, with blue flames, across a shadow, and landed on the ship. Dad, the person who came was none other than Marco. As soon as he landed on the deck, he called out. Newgate asked with a smile on his lips, how is it? Do you see clearly? I saw it clearly, and sure enough, Orgrim and Kaido have joined forces. The 1st Legion of Avalon and Kaido's Beast Fleet are launching a joint attack on Butter Island, Marco responded quickly. His tone was also a little excited. His defeat to Orgrim was a pain in Marco's heart. Over the years, although under the protection of Newgate, there was almost no danger. Marco did not relax his strength growth because of this. On the contrary, he worked harder. Now, he is very confident, and maybe he still can't beat that bastard Orgrim. But if he wants to be like before, he can fight 2 against 1 by himself. We're easily counter-killed, that should be impossible. It's not just Marco, Jose is also like this. At the same time, it seems that it's not just pirates like them. On the sea, he once lost to Orgrim, and the young masters he taught with his sledgehammer are far more powerful at this stage than in the original story. Without him, they were just stimulated by the pervert Orgrim. For example, Kuzan, Porisalino, Sakaski, Jun, and others of the navy. Oh? How's it going? Newgate raised his eyebrows and asked. Ha 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 ha, although Charlotte Lingling's fleet was well prepared for the battle, it was still beaten back steadily. It is estimated that it is only a matter of time before the Beast Pirates and Warhammer Pirates land on Butter Island, and it won't be long. Marco laughed loudly and said. If you can't even get to the island, then the war launched by Kaido and Orgrim this time will be a joke, Newgate said without surprise. It is estimated that when we get to the island, there will be a second wave of tough battles to be fought. Marco nodded. After a slight pause, he said again, by the way, Dad, I also saw people from the Navy. Newgate frowned slightly. In his estimation, the Navy should have no chance, or in other words, no strength to participate in this war. It's not that the Navy headquarters is weak. In fact, Newgate knew it. He knew clearly that the Navy headquarters was something he couldn't defeat. That was the real overlord of the sea. However, this was a new world, and the Navy's influence was limited, so it appeared weak. He noticed the change in his father's expression. Marco didn't show any concern and quickly explained there are only a few ships, most of them bear the name of G-5. They are probably observing the situation, not Marineford's combat effectiveness. This is normal. Although I have no chance to participate, do you want to know the situation first? When Newgate heard this, his expression relaxed again and he said with a smile. Do we need to kill them first? Marco asked directly. No, if they like to watch, let them watch. No matter how much they watch, if they don't have the strength to enter the new world, what's the use? I can only hold this anger in my stomach, Newgate said very domineeringly. Outside the new world, he could not defeat the Navy headquarters, but in the new world, Newgate had the confidence to say no to anyone. After a slight pause, Newgate continued, asked, where's that bastard Orgrim? Have you already taken action? What about Kaido? Are they teaming up to attack Lingling? No, Butter Island is still very peaceful. Only a large number of Big Mom pirates' cutters can be seen moving around. No conflicts broke out. Orgrim and Kaido are nowhere to be seen, Marco quickly introduced. Oh? Newgate murmured in surprise, and then whispered, what are these 2 bastards doing? Dad, is it possible that they are going to attack Cake Island? After all, that is the real headquarters of the Big Mom pirates, Jose said angrily. Newgate smiled, waved his hands without hesitation and said, if we do that, it may be very unexpected, but it will not be Orgrim and Kaido. This war, the purpose is not to destroy Cake Island. No matter how Kaido and Orgrim plan, they will appear on Butter Island. You have to ask why, because I am here and Charlotte Lingling is here. If they don't fight me, they will never be able to clear their names. Don't even think about being on an equal footing with me. So what do we do now? If those 2 guys didn't show up, Marco also asked hesitantly. Newgate didn't think about anything at all and said directly, no need to change anything, proceed as planned. If the 2 of them don't show up, just treat them as if they don't exist. Just fight me, break through their coalition, and fight to Butter Island. After finishing speaking, Newgate didn't wait for Marco and Josa to speak, and suddenly laughed and said, "Ask me to add some spices to them, and treat it as a meeting gift for us pirates." As soon as he finished speaking, Newgate suddenly raised his hand and threw the big sword Kongyunki into the air. The broadsword whirled in the air, Newgate's body sank slightly, and the muscles in his body surged. Then, he crossed his arms in front of his chest, and the transparent energy impact of the zhen fruit quickly gathered on his fists. Then, he suddenly opened his arms and punched the void on both sides of his body. Shock! With a soft click, the originally stable space was directly shattered by these two punches, and inexplicable energy quickly spread out. Then, Newgate retracted his arms, returned to his original posture, and stretched out his hands slightly, just in time to catch the bushi-unki falling from the sky in his hands again. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. In the first 5 breaths, everything was calm, as if nothing had changed. But as soon as 5 breaths passed, the originally calm sea surface changed rapidly. The powerful vibration force stirred up turbulence under the sea water. Then, the turbulence converged into waves, and the waves gathered into tides. The tides gradually expanded and eventually formed a tsunami more than 100 meters high, roaring towards Butter Island. Single-handedly, he can change the tide of the entire sea area and set off huge waves and tsunamis. This is the strength of Newgate, who is known as the strongest man. This is the power of the earthquake fruit that is said to be able to destroy the world. At the same time, on Butter Island, as the battle lines in the sea gradually became tense, Charlotte Lingling's expression became more and more gloomy. The tea party had stopped at this time, and this old woman didn't insist on dragging her guests to fight to the death with her. All the big guys have already taken a back seat and are ready to become a melon eater. "How's it going?" Charlotte Lingling asked in a deep voice. Smoothie just hung up the phone and responded quickly, "I still haven't seen Orgrim and Kaido, but the situation in the sea ahead is not good. Warhammer, it's almost a given that the fleets of the pirates and beasts pirates will land on Butter Island, it's just a matter of time." "Yeah? Then let them fight. If they want to step on me, Charlotte Lingling, to become equal to Newgate, it depends on whether they have the ability and whether they can afford the price." Charlotte Lingling's expression turned cold, and she said with a slightly ferocious expression, "Brother Katakuri has already organized the defensive front of Butter Island. All brothers, sisters, and cotters are ready to fight. Even if they get to Butter Island, it will not be easy," Smoothie said again. Charlotte Lingling nodded, but didn't say anything. She still knew very well in her heart that no matter how fiercely the cotters fought, they were just showing off their various abilities. It's just a bonus point for the strength of the pirate group. What really determines everything depends on the strength of their captains. As long as the captain is defeated, no matter how good the cotters under their command are, they will lose in terms of the result. "Mother, Irving, this guy," ran over with a phone bug in his hand. Ever since his hot fruit was taken away by Orgrim and given to his hammer, Irving has not become an esper until now. But his strength is quite good. After all, he is Katakuri's brother, so his qualifications cannot be too bad. Therefore, he also has the reputation of being a minister. "Explain," Charlotte Lingling said unceremoniously. Owen, who had long been used to it, said directly, "The surveillance area in the southeast has not been wiped out. News of surveillance came from Sea Slug. Whitebeard's fleet arrive." After hearing the news, Charlotte Lingling's original gloomy expression dissipated a little, and she said with a ferocious smile on her lips, "That old thing really didn't disappoint me. Flowers, monthly passes, be more conscious, don't ask me to rush you. Please." A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 377. Whitebeard's participation in the battle really made Charlotte Lingling breathe a sigh of relief. Although there have been speculations before that Newgate has a high probability of joining. But those were all speculations. Now that the old guy is really here, Charlotte Lingling can feel relieved. As long as that old guy comes, even if she doesn't say anything about joining forces, it's logical that they will be a natural ally. That old guy. Charlotte Lingling opened her mouth to say something, but she hadn't finished speaking yet. The expression on her face suddenly changed, and then, the captain's hat Napoleon on Charlotte Lingling's head instantly received her will, directly turned into a long sword, and fell on Charlotte Lingling. Hands. Smoothie and Owen looked shocked, wondering what their mother was going to do. I saw that Charlotte Lingling's movements were very coherent, without any hesitation. The moment she grabbed the Emperor's sword, the power in her body suddenly exploded, and she raised her hand and struck into the clouds in the sky. Elbaf's gun powerful country, Charlotte Lingling roared. Elbaf's spear is a common move of the giants, and it can be regarded as a kind of secret. And it is a real secret that is not passed down. Even Shiji does not have this kind of move. A collection of combat skills. Orgrim has asked Shiji this question before. Shiji's original words are that this thing requires a giant body to truly exert its power. Charlotte Lingling just said fortunately, she has a body shape that is very suitable for using this kind of combat technique. And she also happened to have lived in the kingdom of giants for a period of time and mastered this kind of combat technique. However, she did not receive orthodox education and learning, so she used the power of Weiguo, not the strongest gun of the giants. Overlord. The Overlord is powerful enough to destroy an island with one blow. The captains of the giant pirates more than 100 years ago, Aooni Torai and Akioni Broki, who should still be fighting passionately in the small garden on the ancient island, can jointly use the Elbaf's gun. Hegemony is the most powerful force of the giant race. With a combined attack, the two of them hit the island-eating monster goldfish that was larger than the island and fed on the island. In his previous life, Orgrim thought this was nothing serious. Only after he came to this world and truly integrated into this world did he understand how much real material there was in it. Those two giants, 100 years ago, offered a bounty of 100 million belly each. It's not an exaggeration to call them monsters. Compared with the hegemony, the power of the Weiguo is much less. But it is also one of Charlotte Lingling's famous stunts. I don't know how many heroes have fallen to her tricks. Weiguo flew directly into the air with powerful force, piercing the clouds in just an instant. Then, before Smoothie and Owen could react, a scorching breath burst out from the clouds in the sky and hit Weiguo directly. Two powerful forces exploded in the clouds instantly. The originally heavy clouds were completely crushed and became extremely thin. Then, a huge figure appeared from the thin clouds in the sky. It was more than 100 meters long, covered in scales, and looked mighty and domineering. It was exactly a dragon from myths and legends. That's right, the one who appeared in the clouds was Kaido. Just now in the clouds, he took a mouthful of 1,000-year-old phlegm and was about to spit it directly on Charlotte Lingling's head from the sky with the hot breath. When she wasn't using her power, Charlotte Lingling didn't notice Kaido's existence. But when Kaido's heat began to explode, Charlotte Lingling felt it immediately and fought back without hesitation. She and Kaido had both worked together under rocks, and she was very familiar with Kaido's various powers. Kaido, Smoothie was shocked and said. The long sword in his hand also trembled slightly. He didn't know whether it was excitement or guilt. Ha 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 ha, Lingling, I haven't seen you for a while. Your power is getting more and more powerful, but is this the way you used to entertain guests? Kaido's huge dragon body was surging in the air, and he laughed and said to Charlotte Lingling. Charlotte Lingling also had an evil smile on her face, and said, I didn't remember the invitation. I came over to you as a guest and secretly hid in the sky. What do you want to do? It's nothing, I'm just wondering how to say hello to you, Kaido said with a smile. Snort, Charlotte Lingling snorted coldly. Then she glanced around the air with her sharp eyes, frowned slightly and said, Are you the only one? Where's that bastard Orgrim? You've been hiding your head and showing your tail, and you still don't dare to come out? Kaido's leader smiled and said, no need to look for it. There is no need for me to go with Orgrim to deal with you. The tone is not small, Charlotte Lingling said sarcastically. On the other side, Morgans, the birdman, was extremely excited. He hid behind the window of the castle and kept taking pictures with the camera. While taking pictures, he said to himself, it's a dragon. Kaido in dragon form. This is rare. I got first-hand information about Butter Island. Just based on these photos, my visit was not in vain. Beside Morgans, Bumit was also a little anxious, looking around as if he was constantly looking for something. What about Orgrim? Why didn't that adult come? Could it be that he went to raid Cake Island? Bumit asked anxiously. When Kaido and Orgrim didn't show up before, he was not in a hurry and just assumed that the two of them had some plan. But now Kaido has appeared, and Orgrim has not yet appeared. He became anxious if there was any trace of him. If there was really some plan and Orgrim took people to get the Cake Island, wouldn't Umid have come to the wrong place? After taking such a big risk, no one saw him. Isn't this bad enough? While taking photos, Morgan said, don't worry, that uncle won't go to Cake Island. I guess I have some other arrangements, right? Having said this, Morgans was silent for a moment, with an inexplicable light shining in his eyes, as if hesitating and a little excited. What's wrong? Bumit looked at Morgans strangely and asked. Not here, Morgans gritted his teeth and said hesitantly. What doesn't work here? Bumit didn't understand what he meant at all. There is too little intelligence to be seen here. Morgans said in a deep voice. Before Umit could speak, Morgans continued as a big news person, how can I back down here? I want to get the best photos, the latest information, and the biggest news. After saying that, Morgans jumped out of the window of the castle. Even though he was a birdfruit albatross formed ability user, in fact, it was difficult for Morgans to fly. He needed a long distance. Only by taking a run up can he really take off. There was no distance for him to run up at this time, so he jumped out of the castle and hit the ground directly. He twisted his slightly fat figure, got up and ran away happily. Crazy. This bastard is crazy. Bumit looked at Morgans running and taking pictures, and cursed in disbelief. At the same time, on the warships around Butter Island, a group of Navy officers were anxiously turning the helm. For no other reason, because behind the warship, a huge wave hit, it was a tsunami. Standing on the deck, the cloak of justice on Jun's shoulders was dancing in the wind. Her eyes were a little sharp, and she cursed angrily and ordered quickly, let the other warships move closer to us. Move faster. You are not even active in escaping, what a waste. Although Jun cursed like this, in fact, the Navy's actions were still very fast. Not long after, before the tsunami hit, the four warships got closer together. Then, a Navy officer from G-5 the Major looked at the huge tsunami with some horror. There is no doubt that once this tsunami hits their warships, it will immediately sink all the seemingly huge warships to the bottom of the sea. No one will survive. Eldest sister Head, the Navy lieutenant commander couldn't help but murmured, his tone full of panic. Shut your mouth and watch, Jun greeted impatiently. Then, she took 2 steps forward bravely with her long white legs, twisted her neck left and right, and made a click sound. Under the expectant gazes of everyone in the Navy, Jun stepped on the railing of the deck, looking somewhat heroic. He is indeed the strongest man in the world, Jun said with a smile on his lips. The moment she finished speaking, she exerted force under her feet, causing some cracks in the wooden fence. Then, her domineering and beautiful figure flew into the air. Putting a hand on Jinpura on his waist, Jun glanced at the roaring tsunami, then lowered his eyelids and closed his eyes directly. I flow the secrets and cut the moon with one sword, Jun shouted suddenly. When her eyes opened, the Jinpura in her hand was instantly unsheathed, and a strong cold air was brought up. This cold air instantly condensed the surrounding air. There were water droplets hanging on Jun's body. In an instant, these water droplets were frozen into frosty white by the cold air again, and hung on Jun's body. The cold air was just an addition, the real power was the sword in Jun's hand. The light of the sword in a flash, a sharp slash flew towards the tsunami. At first glance, compared with the overwhelming tsunami, this slash was too small. The 5 Marines watched as their eldest sister struck a blow aggressively, and the result was a nothing special slash. That's it? There was some despair in their hearts, and some people were even mentally prepared to die. But soon, in just a moment, the slash landed on the roaring tsunami. Being submerged in a tsunami is like a moth flying into a flame, nothing changes. It couldn't even cut through the tsunami or stop it. At the same time, Jun also landed on the deck, with a smile on her lips, as if she was very confident in this sword. Woryu is a swordsman who, after forming his own sect, condenses his efforts in kendo and masters and develops his own mysteries and sects. This also means that you are qualified to establish a sect. There are many people who dare to call themselves Wolu in the sea, but most of them are just seeking fame and reputation, and they are just cheating. But Jun is different, she is really strong. Big sister, the surrounding Marines all called Jun uneasily. However, Jun ignored them and slowly put Jinpura into the scabbard. The cold air on the sword gradually dissipated. A soft click of metal came from the place where the scabbard and the handle met. As soon as this voice came out, the scene changed quickly. The tsunami that came towards the warship gradually turned from blue to white. Then, the tsunami within a range of more than 100 meters gradually became stiff and slow. Then, it just froze into a frosty white glacier and stopped there. Looking at the tsunami coming from the sky, it looked like a wall was moving towards the warship. Suddenly, the wall that was about to hit the warship collapsed, exposing a big hole in the entire wall. The tsunami immediately revealed a flaw. By the time many navies reacted, the warships had already passed through the tsunami very smoothly from this flaw. So strong. The eldest sister is so powerful. Jun smiled and didn't care about these boasts. His expression soon changed and he said, "Trash, hurry up, spread out, don't bump the warships together, continue to monitor." She is not proud of anything. Freezing a tsunami doesn't seem to be anything special. If it were Kuzan, he could freeze the entire sea area with the huge tsunami just now with a wave of his hand. But he is of the natural type, while Jun is a phantom species of the animal type. With his abilities developed to this extent, he is already so powerful that he can explode. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 378. New World Totland Cake Island. That's right, Charlotte Lingling's headquarters on Cake Island. 2 sneaky figures are now on this island. The defense force is really empty. There are not many famous cotters in sight, a figure said. Isn't that natural? Master Hammer went to Butter Island, Charlotte Lingling couldn't help her sons and daughters to fight with all her strength, another figure said. When the war over there is over, will Charlotte Lingling be mad to death? The figure asked again. I can't tell, ha 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 ha, the figure next to him responded. At the same time, in the deep sea of Butter Island, Orgrim had just received a list in his hand. This list was densely packed, and they were all the cotters of the Big Mom pirates. Tisk tisk tisk, Charlotte Lingling is really, did he almost pull out the entire pirate group? Orgrim looked at the list and smacked his lips. After all, in this war, she is the only one who is under the greatest pressure. If she is not careful, she will fall out of the 4 top pirate groups. Of course she has to go all out. Unlike you, you can still think of sending people. Totland's Cake Island Steel, Stussy sat next to Orgrim and said with a smile. That's right, Steal. Orgrim really didn't plan to raid Cake Island or anything, because that was different from the essential meaning of this war. But that doesn't mean he's no longer interested in Cake Island. Charlotte Lingling has been a pirate for decades, and she has so many good things. If nothing else, the historical text of the road sign is very valuable. Although Orgrim is not very interested in finding Ravdro through the historical text of the road sign, at least for now. But it doesn't mean that Orgrim doesn't care about this thing. I don't have to go, but I can't be unprepared. The strength of the Warhammer pirates has grown by leaps and bounds, and has already caught up with Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, and others. But Orgrim's time as a pirate is indeed far behind those of them. In terms of the foundation of various collections, they are incomparable. But this is something that can be pursued, as a captain who is determined to make the Warhammer pirates fully develop their moral, intellectual, physical, artistic, and skillful abilities. Orgrim sent Gangplank and Depend directly to Cake Island when the war started. There is no need for them to share any pressure on the Cake Island. Just seize the opportunity and steal more of Charlotte Lingling's collection and wealth. Dai Peng is a user with the ability to form a phantom beast, the nine-tailed fox. He is a master of illusion. He can change his appearance and is very suitable for sneaking in. And Plank, Avalon's biggest intelligence chief, a user with the transparent fruit ability, is naturally very suitable to be a thief. In this war, there must be enough dividends. The war must serve interests, otherwise it will not be a loss of blood. Butter Island, a corner island, is not prosperous. Charlotte Lingling is definitely not a fool. Even if there are any good things on the island, she must have moved them away when she chose the battlefield. Therefore, there is no economic gain in attacking Butter Island. It's just a simple battle to clear the name, with a large proportion of political interests. However, no matter how big it is, it also means that the Warhammer pirates will lose a lot of wealth. After all, it is not for nothing to say that once the cannon goes off, there will be 10,000 taels of gold. I don't know how many ships are going to sink here and how much ammunition is going to be poured out. Although Orgrim has a lot of subordinates, how can they not die in a war? These dead guys will still have to pay pensions to their relatives and friends when the war is over. Each one of these is an expense. Orgrim is so stingy, how could he only get in and out? So he planned to use Charlotte Lingling's money to fill this hole. Did Charlotte Lingling ever think that Orgrim would steal things from Cake Island? Not to mention, she really didn't think about it. Because she didn't expect Orgrim to be so shameless. Everyone spread out their battle array and set up their posture on Butter Island. They fought with real swords and guns, which was already very grand. Result, Orgrim sent people to steal money from her house. Is this really cool? But to Orgrim, this is nothing. As long as this war is stable, he will not lose face. Besides, as a pirate, what's wrong with me being despicable? Is there anything wrong? Lord Hammer. Rengar suddenly pushed open the cabin door and walked in. Orgrim looked up at him and asked, "What's wrong?" "The tsunami is a huge tsunami. It is probably caused by the Whitebeard pirates. It is heading towards the battlefield. It is expected to reach where we are now in 5 minutes. Kaido and Charlotte have already Lingling contacted," Rengar spoke quickly. Orgrim didn't care about Kaido's affairs. He didn't care about it, but Orgrim was very concerned about the tsunami. After all, if the tsunami really swept into the battlefield, not only would the fleet of the Big Mom pirates suffer, but Orgrim and Kaido's subordinates would also be in trouble. "Is Newgate coming?" "Gee ha 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 ha, I'm really looking forward to it. This means it's time for me to perform on stage too," Orgrim laughed and said. Yes, Orgrim and Kaido have divided their responsibilities. At first, he went to deal with Charlotte Lingling, and then Orgrim came to stop Whitebeard. Then, let's start the war. Finally, set the decisive battle location on Butter Island and start a real melee. After all, Whitebeard is so powerful that you can compete with him on the sea, but if you want to fight a protracted war with him on the sea, then just wait to be sunk to the bottom of the sea by the endless tsunami. Send the order, lift the boat, let's go to the sea. Orgrim waved his hand. He couldn't let that bastard Whitebeard send a tsunami into the battlefield. Newgate didn't even arrive, so he released a tsunami first. I'm afraid it wasn't just a greeting. Simple. He probably wanted to force himself, who had never shown up, to come out quickly, right? If he didn't come out, he would destroy Orgrim's pirate fleet. Rengar went down to deliver the order, and Orgrim took it from Stacy. I picked up the phone bug, and after dialing, the person picked up the call quickly. Mr. Hammer, Plank asked quickly. It's me, it's time to take action. I have already obtained the list of officers who appeared on Butter Island. I can confirm that there is not much power hidden on Cake Island. As long as you are careful, there will be no danger. Orgrim said to the phone bug. As soon as he finished speaking, Gangplank said excitedly, really, I see. Ha 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 ha, good job. Orgrim laughed. Don't worry, Mr. Hammer, I guarantee you will make a lot of money, Glank laughed. Then the two quickly hung up the phone, and Gangplank and Depend began to steal on the Cake Island. After finishing, Orgrim stood up from the sofa. After moving his body a little, he turned around and said to Stussy, I'm going to clean up the tsunami. You contact Doflamingo and the others so that we can start to seize the territory. Stussy nodded with a smile and said, I understand, leave it to me. Orgrim also smiled, and then walked out of the cabin. As soon as he closed the door behind him, Orgrim walked towards the deck. At the same time, Hank, who had been standing at the door as a personal bodyguard, also carried Orgrim's warhammer, followed Orgrim, and walked out silently. Different from usual times, Orgrim's warhammer head was covered with an exquisite leather sheath. Yes, Orgrim is raising a hammer. He hadn't done this for a long time, partly because he always forgot about it, and it was a bit funny to wear a leather holster for the warhammer. When he first went to sea, his strength was not very good, so of course he didn't care about being shameless and funny. But after he becomes a big boss, he still needs to save face. And at that time, he didn't need to use this method for those who were weaker than him. Those who are stronger than him, even if they have more strength, can't win. Now, it's a different situation. He has the confidence to challenge Whitebeard. So facing this strongest man, we must go all out. The domineering deep-sea overlord, the Black Narwhal, broke through the turbulent sea and opened all the enclosed cabins. At this time, Beckman and others were already on the deck. Not far away, a huge tsunami was sweeping towards the side. As soon as Orgrim walked onto the deck, he saw Mihawk pull out the black knife that he was carrying on his back, and slashed it out with a single blow. There's nothing fancy about it, and it's not like Jun. There's also a hidden meaning behind it. Mihawk just slashed out with a dull sword. Then, the extremely powerful slash hit the roaring tsunami at an extremely fast speed. With just one knife, the tsunami opened a huge gap in the middle. Gee ha 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 ha, no, Orgrim laughed loudly. Mihawk glanced at Orgrim after hearing this, but did not refute anything. To say that we can survive this tsunami safely, there is no problem. Mihawk cut it with one knife. The opening was big enough for the Black Narwhal to pass through. But it was useless to pass through. Orgrim's original intention was to prevent the tsunami from having a devastating impact on the war in the rear waters. It would be useless for my ship to pass through it. What a sense! Then Orgrim looked at Beckman, Barrett, and other cotters and asked, how is it? Can you stop this tsunami? Barrett shook his head very straightforwardly and said, if you give me enough time and materials to prepare, there will be no problem. Now, it's impossible. At most, just like Mihawk, we can survive this tsunami smoothly. Beckman rolled his eyes and said, "Stop talking nonsense, we can't do it even with our abilities. Let's start your performance." Orgrim ignored Beckman's urging and laughed loudly. "No, you are all mature pirates. You should learn to be self-reliant. You can't just rely on me as the captain whenever you encounter difficulties, right?" After saying that, Orgrim didn't give them a chance to mock him. He jumped directly through everyone and jumped out of the deck. It looked like he committed suicide by jumping into the sea. But no one was surprised. Beckman and others walked to the edge of the deck and looked down. At this time, Orgrim was holding onto the anchor hanging on the side of the ship with one hand. One hand was stretched into the turbulent sea. "Roll over, the sea." Orgrim laughed loudly. The moment his words fell, a huge impact energy burst out from his hands and instantly seeped into the sea. Unlike Newgate, he created a tsunami of this level. Easy and freehand, 2 punches to get it done. But Orgrim has to continuously release impact energy to stimulate the sea. This does not mean that there is an insurmountable gap in strength between the two, it is just because of the fruit ability, it's just different manifestations. As Orgrim's abilities continue to be activated, the originally turbulent tsunami seems to be affected, and waves of impact erupt from its interior. If you compare it to a wall, then now this wall was constantly exploding fireworks. Every time there was an explosion inside, the force of the impact was released, and the power of the tsunami weakened. The tsunami more than 100 meters high also quickly dissipated. Then, the black narwhal in front of the ship, due to the release of the impact force, a tsunami also condensed. The two tsunamis faced each other and soon collided with each other. The opposing tsunami forces were entangled with each other and seemed to be able to twist everything involved. It was like breaking into pieces. After a while, the tsunami that came from the sky finally calmed down and turned into a slightly larger wave, passing in front of the black narwhal. Orgrim didn't care about it anymore. It's a huge wave. As long as it doesn't constitute a tsunami, this kind of wave shouldn't cause much trouble to the rear front. If anyone is really unlucky and can't even cover this kind of wave, then he deserves to die. Hold on to the anchor, Orgrim, who was a little wet, looked at the sea in the distance. A huge white whale ship was sailing this way. After that, there were dozens of ships flying the flag of the Whitebeard pirates. "Fleet coming," Orgrim said with an evil smile on his lips. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 379. It wasn't just Orgrim who saw Whitebeard's ship. At this time Newgate also saw the huge black narwhal. "Cool la 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 la, has it really come out?" Newgate grinned and said with a smile. "It seems that his tsunami is quite useful. Just say hello and Orgrim will come out to pick up the guests. Slow down and move closer." Newgate waved his hand and said very casually. Then, the large fleet led by Moby Dick quickly reduced its speed, adjusted its direction slightly, and moved towards Orgrim. Orgrim had also returned to the deck at this time. Looking at the Whitebeard fleet that was gradually approaching, he did not make any move. He only needed to wait for Newgate to come over by himself. There was no need to go up to greet anything. For about 10 minutes, the equally huge Moby Dick slowly stopped on the sea not far in front of the black narwhal. Newgate's tall figure gradually walked to the bow. Meet that year compared with that time, this guy seems to have not changed much. He is still so mighty and domineering. The only slight difference is that his originally bright golden long hair is much missing. It can be seen that although he still maintains the fighting power at his peak, but he is indeed a little older. Time is not forgiving. But this is not something Orgrim should worry about. Orgrim is looking at Newgate, and Newgate's eyes are also looking at Orgrim. Mew. I haven't seen Orgrim for many years. The last time we met, he was still the junior behind Shiji. Now, he is qualified to stand upright in front of him. He has neat short black hair. He is not particularly handsome, but he is not ugly either. On the contrary, he has a resolute and mighty face that makes him full of momentum. His strong body and domineering muscles complement each other. He is shirtless, wearing a pair of black trousers and high-quality boots. There were no scars all over his body. He looked still so young. Ah, by the way, Orgrim was already very young, but his achievements and legends concealed his age. Forget it. If he gets up, he is only in his 20s this year, not even 30. On the sea, this is really a young age. The war has not started yet, but when Newgate saw Og at the moment when Rem looked at him, there was an inexplicable emotion. It seemed that the next era should be for young people like them. Perhaps he was the remnant of the era, right? But in the end, Newgate stood at the bottom of the sea. One of the men at the top has a very strong willpower. This short moment of emotion only circulated in his heart for a moment, and then passed over. Ku-la-la-la-la-la, Orgrim, didn't you bring your parents with you today? Newgate took the lead in greeting Orgrim and joked with a laugh. This seemed to be a mockery of Orgrim, who always had to follow Shiki in the past. Orgrim didn't either. He doesn't care about this kind of ridicule, he is not so stingy. But when it comes to war of words, he, Orgrim, has never been afraid of anyone. Orgrim laughed and said. Newgate also didn't care about this, and Marco and others looked a little ugly. But their father didn't speak, and it was hard for them to speak. It looked too uneducated. A little. Newgate looked at the surrounding sea with a somewhat emotional expression, and then said, after so many years of separation, you have recovered from your injuries. It's just a casual fall on the road of growth. What harm can happen? My body is great, do you want to try it? Orgrim said with a smile. Before Newgate could speak, Orgrim asked again, I heard that you are in poor health, can the status be maintained? I want to fight with the strongest. If you are not in good condition, I have no interest. Ku-la-la-la-la, kid, who do you think I am? Newgate laughed boldly. As he grew older, Newgate could indeed feel some subtle changes in himself. But now, these are nothing. As for any bad health, it is all in the sea. It's just a rumor. Newgate is still in his prime, in his 50s. In this world, he is in his prime. Unlike the war at Marineford in the future, he was still hung up before he left. He's holding a bottle. That's the real weakness. Otherwise, facing Whitebeard at his peak, although the Navy still has the advantage, it can't win so easily. It seems they are all rumors. You are in very good shape. Orgrim smiled again. Newgate did not accept the words, but said, I received your invitation and the people are here, what's the matter, don't you want to take action? Are you so impatient? It seems like you've been holding it in for a long time. Orgrim smiled and said. Ku-la-la-la-la, I have to say, you bastard boy is indeed extraordinary. I saw your power back then, and now you have grown to this point, and you are qualified to fight with me. And in this sea, there are not many people who are qualified to compete with me. As you said, I am really looking forward to it. Newgate laughed loudly. At the same time as he finished speaking, the big knife in his hand, Kong Yun, cut into it, condensing a vibrating force. It's useless to talk too much. If you want to be on an equal footing with me in the new world, let me weigh your weight and measure. As soon as Newgate finished speaking, he slashed out the Kanjai Unki in his hand from afar. There was a crisp sound, and wherever the tip of Kong Yun's knife passed, all the space was shattered. There was no visible power, but a strong sense of oppression and shock enveloped Orgrim in an instant. Feeling the force of the vibration and squeezing of the space around him, Orgrim also had a smile on his lips and said, respecting the old and caring for the young has always been the virtue and tradition of our Warhammer pirates. Today, I will let you take the lead. It's over. As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim's body quickly erupted with a force of impact, directly dissipating all the shock and squeezing around him. Newgate laughed loudly, exerted force with his feet, jumped directly from the bow of the deck, and stabbed Orgrim in the head from the air. Orgrim also laughed loudly and said, "Hammer." After hearing this sentence, the silent Hank instantly took off the warhammer he was carrying behind him and threw it away. Orgrim didn't even take off the hammer's holster, but he also exerted force with his feet and rushed directly towards Newgate in the air. The warhammer pulled out a flower shadow in the air, and with the powerful power in his body, he smashed the hammer towards Newgate's clouds. The power of vibration and impact exploded in the air. With this power, the two people actually stopped in the sky between the two ships out of thin air. If you are not careful at all, you may be knocked down into the sea. There was no burst of domineering power, just pure energy being vented. A smile appeared on the corner of Newgate's lips, and his eyes flashed. The last time he fought with Orgrim, this kid stood firmly on the ground, and it was difficult for him to hit him. He was afraid that his whole body would be severely injured. But this time, the two of them were flying in the air, and Orgrim took his cloud cut, and it seemed like he didn't have much effort. Gee ha 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 ha, you are worthy of being so powerful, what an amazing monster. Orgrim laughed loudly. Newgate also laughed and said, "Cool la 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 la, when it comes to monsters, you bastard is the real monster. I am as big as you at that time, it was not so cruel. Gee ha ha, if each generation is worse than the last, then everyone should stop being pirates," Orgrim laughed boldly. The moment the words fell, Newgate applied force in his hand. Orgrim was not to be outdone, and the force of the impact exploded. There was another crisp sound of click. The two hammered. Where the knives met, the space was shattered, revealing a dark void. At the same time, Orgrim's eyes flashed with a fierce look, and the leather sheath on the doom hammer exploded. This leather, the moment the condom exploded, Newgate felt the force in his hand increase by another 3 points. "Don't underestimate me," Newgate shouted loudly. Boom! With a loud bang, the sea surface within a kilometer range exploded with violent waves. Both the Moby Dick and the Black Narwhal were pushed away by the spilled shock and impact force. The two huge ships, he was squeezed out more than 100 meters away. "The sky is torn apart," Rengar exclaimed. Everyone looked up after hearing the sound. Sure enough, the clouds in the sky were also affected. They were like a rift valley, squeezing together and looking ferocious and terrifying. There was no official fight yet, just testing each other. The power spilled out made the sea become turbulent, the warships could not get close, and the sky was torn apart. "How strong are these two guys?" Dr. Nightingale murmured with a very shocked expression. "All of his strength lies in medical skills and scientific research. There is nothing much to say about the rest. He is just a bit armed and domineering, and can barely protect himself. Although he is very early, he was following Orgrim's old crew, but it was indeed a long time since he had seen Orgrim fight with all his strength. So now his heart was extremely shocked." There was a smile on Beckman's lips. He said, "Whitebeard is still the strongest Whitebeard back then, but Orgrim is no longer the Orgrim he was back then. As early as when we were in Bahia, I knew that guy would definitely be able to become a stirring figure in the future. A big shot in the world, now it seems that he is already one." Barrett's eyes are also tight. Staring at those two figures, he had already awakened his abilities. Although he had lost to Orgrim in O'Hara's competition, Barrett felt that the gap between him and Orgrim should not be particularly big. But now, he clearly realized one thing, that is, this guy Orgrim is simply not a human being. How did he train it? Mihawk's expression was also a little surprised, and he couldn't help but ask that guy, what happened to that guy in Orgrim? In my impression, doesn't he just get up every morning and practice casually, and start catching up on sleep before noon? After I woke up, I ate. After eating, I took and dressed and Yamato to play together. His strength, what the hell is going on? Beckman's eyes were a little vague, and he seemed to recall that one time, late at night, he couldn't sleep. When he was wandering, he passed by Orgrim's courtyard and felt the change in the atmosphere inside. He went in curiously and took a look. Look, you find Orgrim sitting quietly in the courtyard, the scene of armed domineering surging on his body. However, he did not explain anything, but smiled and said, because that guy is Orgrim, Khazgaro's Orgrim, the king of Avalon, the king of chaos, and the king of the night, how can you do it without being strong? The moment his voice fell, a new change occurred between Orgrim and Newgate. Where the hammer and knife intersected, the space was already fragmented, and it seemed that it was because they could not withstand this continuous flow. The pressure was on, and it suddenly exploded. There was no spark or anything like that, just a huge force bursting out from the black space crack. Then, due to the intervention of this third force, Newgate and Austrian Grimm's face straightened, and the power in his hands was released, and then he used the force to distance himself. After the two flew upside down in the air for a while, they each stabilized their bodies and landed on their own ship calmly. But what if you look carefully, you will find that there are more cracks on the deck under the feet of Newgate and Orgrim. That is the power surging in the body, and some of it is unconsciously vented. Whispering sound, that old guy is still so strong that it makes people despair. Orgrim smacked his lips and murmured softly. Newgate also moved his wrist a little, looked at Orgrim's figure, and whispered softly, young monster, it's really hard to deal with. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 380. On the other side, not far from the coastline of Butter Island Port, in the sea water, several pirates from the Big Mom pirate group were swimming towards the shore in fear. It seems like there is some monster in the sea. At this moment, a figure suddenly became frightened. While struggling, he screamed, let me go, let me go. You monster! But before he could finish his words, he was suddenly pulled under the surface of the sea, and a lot of bubbles popped up. Then, the water turned red and there was no movement. After the others discovered this scene, they were even more frightened and rushed to swim towards the port. But soon, one by one, they were caught by monsters under the sea and sent into the abyss of death. Shoot, shoot. Coverage shot, the people at the port yelled and asked their subordinates to shoot at the invisible sea. Dozens of bullets were poured on the sea. After a while, another stream of bright red blood spread out. Finished, a small cotter of the Big Mom pirates swallowed his saliva and said with some hesitation. At this time, the fleet in the sea area has almost entered the stage of defeat. Soon, they will become the first line of the new defense line. A group of flesh and blood positions. As for the First Legion of Avalon, some people have already begun to try to invade the port. These people are not afraid of death and are very ferocious. However, with the strength of firearms and the number of people, no enemy has actually boarded the port yet. At this moment, a corpse floated out of the dark red blood. Not him. That's our guy, the young cotter said in shock and anger. Just when he was about to give the order to shoot again, the wooden dock corridor of the port suddenly exploded. A serrated knife came out of the water and killed an unlucky guy from the bottom up. The wooden floor was cut into two pieces, and the bloody stumps and broken arms were thrown out of the air. Along laughed loudly. At the same time as he finished speaking, his figure jumped out from under the sea here and officially stepped into the port. At this time, Aaron had dozens of knife wounds on his body. Although it looked like it's not very serious, but the injury is definitely serious. Even though he is a shark warrior of the fishmen tribe, he still feels a little disconnected and tired. But it doesn't matter. He, Aaron, is the first legion of Avalon. Among the 30,000 warriors, he was the first to land on Butter Island. He fought all the way. He has earned the title of first warrior. Even if he dies here, no one can take away this honor. Kill him, the young Cotter roared angrily. Several members of the musketeers directly adjusted the muzzles of their guns and prepared to shoot at Aaron. However, Aaron was not dazzled by the honor of being the first warrior. His speed faster. Since he had just come up from the sea and was all wet, Aaron did not use his serrated sword. Instead, he swung his arm towards the musketeers. The water droplets on his arm, he flew out immediately. Feel the power from the deep sea, bastards. Yabusamare hit the water, Aaron shouted loudly. The water droplets thrown out from his hand were like shotguns, covering the musketeers in an instant. Blood sprays exploded on the bodies of several gunmen. Some unlucky guys had their heads blown directly. It exploded, and blood mist flew. Asshole, the young Cotter of the Big Mom musketeers cursed and stopped raising his gun. He waved the machete in his hand and attacked Aaron. Aaron laughed ferociously, and the serrated sword in his hand, Jean Feng, followed suit. Got out. Die, Aaron yelled. But that guy was still a small Cotter after all. The machete in his hand actually held Aaron's serrated machete, and it seemed that he still had some strength left. Aaron also knew that he was out of strength, and the 100% of the power in his body could now be used at most 50%. But he did not have any guilt, and his eyes were filled with light. After the young Cotter blocked Aaron's slashing attack with a knife, he got closer to Along excitedly. Long, it seems that this guy is just like that. But as soon as he came over, Aaron let go of the serrated sword in his hand, raised his hand and hit the little Cotter with a palm. Fishman karate samwa martial palm, Aaron hit the little Cotter with a palm. The little Cotter seemed to have been prepared for a long time, and said with a ferocious smile, "Idiot Fishman, I also have your compatriots in Totland. I know the Fishman karate that you are good at." Not sure. His figure flashed very quickly, dodging Aaron's palm. Then, he also released the machete in his hand, took out the dagger in his arms, and tried to stab Aaron in the heart. And at this moment, Aaron's eyes also flashed with a ruthless look, and then, he instinctively bit the guy. With a click, his shark-like mouth bit the guy directly. On the shoulder, his shoulder blades were bitten into pieces. The dagger in the man's hand also fell directly to the ground, and he started to cry out in pain. Obviously, you don't know that as a shark murloc, I'm covered in weapons. Aaron let go of his mouth and pinched the guy's head. Then, with a force in his hand, he first lifted the little Cotter up, then grabbed his head and slammed it to the ground. Go down. With a pop, like a watermelon falling to the ground, the head in Aaron's hand exploded, and red and white splattered all over the floor. This made Aaron's already violent and bloodthirsty state even crazier. Who else? Aaron roared angrily. But as soon as he finished speaking, a flash of white light flashed, and then he felt like he had been shot in the chest. No, it was more like being hit by a cannonball. His feet slipped and he lost the support of his strength. Aaron's figure rolled on the ground and hit a stone pier in the port. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of old blood, and his eyes were a little black, but vaguely, he seemed to see the figure clearly. Charlotte Katakuri, Aaron murmured weakly. Then, Katakuri raised another finger and pointed it at him. Dying, Aaron thought unwillingly in his heart. He got the title of the first warrior, but he is going to die here. I really don't know if it's luck or unlucky. It's a pity. He obviously just met the big sister Sphinx. Relationship. I originally thought that after this battle, I would have the opportunity to join the Warhammer Pirates as a small Cotter. As your reward for being the first to land on Butter Island, I will give you death myself, Katakuri whispered softly. However, at this moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he gave up the movement of his hand. On the contrary, his arm melted, and a long-handled trident slipped out of his body, and was directly caught by Katakuri. In hand. Without saying a word, he turned sideways to block the trident. In the next moment, a sharp claw like an eagle directly kicked his trident. Then, the fire flashed, and the strong power made Katakuri's face change again, and his feet relaxed a little. With the force from the trident, the figure slipped out, opening a distance of more than 10 meters. "It's you," Katakuri looked at him with a slightly gloomy expression. Said while. "Our boss Kaido has told us to take good care of the Warhammer pirates. Among other things, as the first warrior of the Avalon First Legion, since I saw it, I naturally can't let you kill him," the figure said in a cold tone. He was also very tall, and you couldn't tell what he looked like because he was wearing a mask on his face. Not only that, he was also wearing a black uniform, which looked a bit like a deep-sea monster. He felt like the boss of prison, impelled down, and impelled in, with a long knife hanging on his waist. And on his back, there was a pair of jet black wings. Yes, this kick kicked Katakuri away. The person who saved the life of Eren, the salty dog, was none other than the leader of the Beast's pirates, Flame Calamity Yin. Katakuri's expression showed a trace of impatience. This guy Yin is considered a member of the Beast's pirates. He is a ship's deputy, and his status and strength are similar to those of the Big Mom pirates. He is indeed a difficult enemy to deal with. But at this moment, two powerful auras suddenly broke out on Butter Island, and then, the momentum quickly transformed into two Overlord color haki. The conflict of Overlord color haki swept across the entire island in an instant. Katakuri frowned slightly, and followed the waves of momentum that hit his face, and looked at the explosion of Overlord color haki. The direction of the source. Yin did not take action directly, but also turned his head to look over there. As for Eren, he was already very weak, and after being affected by these two Overlord-colored domineering energies, he fainted directly. "Past. Mother," Katakuri whispered softly. "Boss Kaido," Yin also murmured. There is no doubt that Kaido and Charlotte Lingling have officially fought. It was too late, but it was too soon. The moment the domineering power dissipated, the long knife in Yin's hand came out of its sheath with a touch of flame and slashed directly at Katakuri. Katakuri seemed to have anticipated this scene. Before he could turn his head, the trident in his hand held Yin's long knife very accurately. In an instant, the two big cotters of the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates fought directly together. They made a lot of noise. They fought all the way from the port to the dense forest of the island, causing countless smoke. On the other side of the coast, lightning flashed, and Enelu held a ferocious battle axe in his hand. With the power of thunder, he split a strong man in front of him in half. But the strong man did not shed any blood. On the contrary, the charred biscuit crumbs fried by the electric current were scattered all over the floor. At the same time, a figure quickly jumped out of the strong man's body, rolled twice in the air, and landed directly on the beach. This figure is none other than the second general of the Big Mom Pirates, Clark. There was a slightly cunning look on his face, and his mouth opened as if he wanted to say something. But before he had time to say these words, his expression suddenly changed and his feet moved, as if he wanted to avoid it. But it was too late. A bolt of lightning struck directly on his body. Calicia let out a painful cry, did not dare to hesitate, and left the place. Sure enough, in the next moment, the battle axe in Enelu's hand had already hit the ground where he was originally. "Idiot! What else do you want to show off to me? Did you say that the cookie just now was all your disguise? Do you think the sex I see and hear is just domineering and just a display? I've already seen your true identity." Enelu pulled out the heavy battle axe from the beach, put it on his shoulder, looked at the dark and ancient figure of Klgia and said. Cracker was not seriously injured, he just looked very embarrassed because of the lightning strike. And he hates pain, so he screams so miserably. It should be impossible to see and hear the domineering, Clark said through gritted teeth. He and General Biscuit are one body, and seeing, hearing, sex and domineering shouldn't be able to distinguish the true from the false in such detail. There are many domineering people in the New World, but almost no one knows the true face of Cracker. Even the Navy's wanted poster shows the appearance of General Biscuit. Don't compare my knowledge and appearance with ordinary people. Remember, my name is Enilu, Enila grinned and said with a smile. Cracker patted the charred biscuit crumbs on his body, and then said with a straight face, it's really unfortunate for you to meet me, Enilu. The moment the voice fell, the long sword in Klgia's hand stabbed in the direction of Enilu, and struck from the air wave pretzel. Thunder axe raging cloud, Enilu raised his hand and struck out with an axe without hesitation.